Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HEROQUEST, and today I plan to answer the question, will Talisman, the magical quest game 5th edition HEROQUEST? Talisman's 5th edition was created by Avalon Hill, through a license acquired from Games Workshop, and I'm so glad that they were able to obtain this license and create this version of the game. Everybody's got their favorite Talisman. Some prefer some of the editions over other editions. The 5th edition of the game brings it into the contemporary. It's back in print, and with this new aesthetic identity comes brand new expansions. We're not seeing the classic corner expansions like the forest and the dungeon and the city this time around, at least not yet. No, Avalon Hill have decided to prioritize new content expansions we haven't seen before in the form of the Talisman Alliances and Talisman Nemesis expansions. This offers new ways to play the classic game, which has endured over the decades. That's how it got to its 5th edition. So in this deceptively small box with a deceptively small amount of components, we actually have quite a bit of game. There is a lot of gameplay to be enjoyed here, and while this video will have some overlap with my complete unboxing, presentation, and overview of Talisman, a separate video that I have here on the channel, this is not what we're doing here today completely. Nope, today we are going to apply a rigorous and well-designed, somewhat convoluted system with a myriad of metrics and parameters on the back end to determine whether or not buying Talisman would be a good idea if you want to homebrew its components for use with HEROQUEST. And we see here the classic broadsword board from Ian Schofield's beautiful dungeon mats, available on Drive-Thru RPG, printed through Inked Gaming. I know people are going to ask, people always ask. We'll go ahead and set up a sort of dummy map, and we will get to work. So first of all, we are going to look at the minis. They are first on our list of things to analyze, and I'm very convinced, in fact, I don't think that you could convince me otherwise, that the sculptor of the Talisman 5th edition miniatures is the same sculptor, the same artist as the sculptor for the HEROQUEST miniatures. And I'm aware there's probably more than one sculptor, more than one 3D designer who's responsible for working on the miniatures. It's not as if every HEROQUEST miniature looks like it necessarily does belong to the same game. Most of them do very, very much, but some of them are just a little bit removed. And those could be creative choices also, all from the same person. But when you look at the scale is 100% spot on. It is perfect for use with HEROQUEST, and that's not just the bases, which are really like only a millimeter, if that, difference in size as far as the circle goes. All of the manufacturing design considerations and design conventions have been put in place so that we have a very streamlined, easy to produce line of miniatures for the Talisman game. No doubt these were lessons learned from the pertinent people at Avalon Hill during their time making miniatures for HEROQUEST, high quality, finely detailed miniatures. But you can also see that there are a lot of design choices that are very consistent with the HEROQUEST miniatures as well, from the folds in the capes to the presentation of the weapons and the amount of detail that goes into each bit of the miniature. So I'm actually really happy with the Talisman 5th edition miniatures. They are some of my favorites as far as homebrewing with HEROQUEST goes. And if you're looking for a way to get something kind of official straight from Avalon Hill in terms of their own product to homebrew with HEROQUEST, look no further than Talisman's 5th edition, because it is here where you could find a perfectly suitable Mentor Mini without having to acquire the one from the Mythic tier. I think that this is a great stand-in for Mentor, but if you didn't want to use it for Mentor, there are a number of spellcasters in Talisman, and you could use them for all of the magical casting entities found throughout HEROQUEST. In no particular order, you can use any of these for Balor the Fire Mage, or Wardaws, who was lost to the undead curse. You could even use one for Zargon themselves. Now there was another character that I wanted to represent, and I thought Ollie, the Count, Olar, we go way back, I call him Ollie for short. His ghost appears in his quest, laughing maniacally at you before disappearing. This is a wandering monster event, and it doesn't need to be represented by a miniature, but if you wanted to, this guy looks absolutely perfect for the role. This is the Ghoul character, And then besides that, all of these miniatures, not only can they represent NPCs and bosses from HEROQuest. Here you've got an actual ogre character, but you can also use this as one of the orc war bosses. I mean, you just can. You don't have too much in here that really separates. He looks like a completely different race, sure, but he could just be a very, very strong orc in the HEROQuest universe. But you can also use them as hero characters. So get yourself some red Citadel paint, the heroic red color, and paint them up. And just, I want to illustrate this one more time. Look at this dwarf. If it weren't for this design of the dwarf, man, I could probably maybe be convinced that it's a completely different designer, but you can't convince me that these were made by two different people. And even if they were, the person who designed this definitely brought this into the 3D program and started manipulating some elements. This is the Explorer, not the Dwarf. Of course, I mean to have the Dwarf over here, but the scale is the same across HEROQuest. So with the Dwarf proportions being perfect, yes, the miniatures will actually miniature 100%. And there are two things that I want to do personally with these miniatures. One, I want to use the Prophetess Mini to represent Princess Melandriel from Mage of the Mirror. And I want to use the Sorceress Mini to represent Cassandria. I think that this is the perfect miniature for Cassandria, a recurring character across HEROQuest. So will the miniatures HEROQuest? And the answer is 11 out of 10. Next question, idiot. Absolutely one of my favorite ways to introduce new miniatures and new characters into HEROQuest, without a doubt. Now, we're not going to affect the score for this game since it is technically a separate product, but the scale really starts to get kind of wonky once we explore the Talisman Alliance's Fate Beckons box. There are miniatures in that don't match 100% in terms of scale. The proportions are off in what look like the same races of characters, and I don't want to spoil anything from that. The miniatures look really cool, and in the context of Talisman, they work perfectly because you're not really going to pay that much attention, I think, to playing pieces or what amount of playing pieces on the board. But as far as dungeon crawling goes, that might be a bit of an irk to some, like it is for me. Next up, we're going to go look at the tokens from Talisman. There are, for a blessing, not that many tokens. I set up this furniture. Why don't I have these characters on the board? Why don't I show you the prophetess over the arcane wizard's table? Cassandria peering through a door. An epic wizard battle is about to begin. Oh, Cassandria. Oh, wizard. They all look so good on the board. You almost want to buy two talismans so you can take the miniatures out of one and only use them in HEROQuest. And then you can buy a third talisman because you can paint all of them red to be new hero characters. And the second set of miniatures that you pulled out before can be enemies. We've moved on to tokens. I don't know why I'm stuck on the miniatures because they're that good. There aren't a lot of tokens. There aren't a lot of chits in Talisman, and this is great. I love this because tokens are my least favorite part of any board game. I can't stand tokens depending on how they are used. But for Talisman, we have these alignment tokens, which all share. These aren't the alignment tokens. These are the fate tokens. One second. The alignment. Now, Talisman doesn't really have that many tokens, which is awesome because depending on how they're used, tokens are some of my least favorite components of any board game. We only have 3 categories of token, and all of them I think HEROQuest very, very well. First off, we have the alignment tokens that show your character's alignment. We have evil, good, and neutral, basically. Lawful, chaotic, neutral, and all of these have an opposite side that's not really meaningful for the token itself, but the backs of all of them are basically the neutral sides, while the fronts are split evenly between the good and the evil. But you could use these for a variety of things in HEROQuest. You could have a token drawn for your hero, and you might think, well, all of the heroes should be good, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think you could definitely play HEROQuest in the context of, say, Warhammer Quest, where some of the characters are looking out more for themselves and they have their own end goals that they have to meet that don't align at all with the other heroes. But at the end of the day, they do have to journey through a dungeon and trust the other heroes. So the party makeup makes sense. I mean, you have a Chaos Warrior in Warhammer Quest that you play as a good guy fighting other Chaos Warriors. He's still very much a Chaos Warrior. He's still very much given to chaos. But the lore and the background story for why such a character would be a hero makes perfect sense. And really when I say hero, I'm kind of being loose with it, and I really just mean player character. You don't necessarily have to play a hero verbatim. But anyway, the fact that all of these flip over to their neutral side means to me that you could select a character that starts out neutral, and if you make choices, you could flip this over to its side that the character is more likely to be. So a warlock, for example, could start out with a neutral token, and whenever the warlock uses demon form, flip this over to its evil side. Now, it's not going to necessarily affect the mechanics of that character's ability set, but this could affect your in-between dungeon choices that you can make. The same way that Warhammer Quest does. The aforementioned Chaos Warrior is able to do some things in town in between quests, and other things can't do at all, and there are also some character developments that can happen that can affect what your Chaos Warrior character is able to do and not do in towns in between missions. Now, if these flipped between, say, neutral and good, and there were tokens that were good and evil, and others were evil and neutral, then I would be talking about a slightly different system of maybe randomization, where you can turn a neutral token in, or a token of any alignment in for another one, and hope that it has the same back, or hope that it has a different back, because if you get into a situation where the condition says flip it, then your character has got a new alignment, and that could open you up to other possibilities. You could also use them to just track the alignment of your character. You don't have to worry about flipping them at all, and you can just have these 3 alignments, and you can kind of make up your own rules as to what this means. But if it were me, I would definitely have something that the characters would be able to do if they leaned more towards the evil than the good, or more the good towards the evil, and something that they could do if they were in between, which would mean that they had the most versatility in between missions. This is special for different reasons. This gives you the most accessibility, and depending on your actions as you're playing through the dungeon, Zargon may decide that you need to flip your token. Did you go through and kill orcs that said that they didn't want to fight, and they retreated into the next room and had no intention of attacking? That's going to flip your token from neutral to evil, or it's going to flip it from good to neutral, or you could even flip it from good to evil, depending on the context. That's all the homebrewing I'll do about alignment for now. Next up, I wanted to talk about the toad tokens, and this is just an eternal part of Talisman. You get turned into a toad. It's kind of like having a warrior with no weapons or armor. There's so little that you can do. The toad tokens will replace your hero in Talisman, and they can definitely replace your hero in HEROQuest. You could be turned into a toad by a character who has the magical ability to turn you into a toad. And when that happens, replace your hero with the toad token, and then move your hero around the dungeon as a toad. Perhaps you have a fixed set of movement, perhaps you are reduced to 1 movement die and no attack die and 1 defend die, and the defend die just kind of represents your ability to be small and hop around to avoid attacks. Perhaps there are good reasons you might want to become a toad, for example, a specific kind of secret door that is too small to go through if you're a hero or even a halfling. And maybe if you befriend a rat, you would be able to get that rat to go through the door, a la Crypt of Perpetual Darkness mechanics. But if you were to become a toad, then you could go through the hole yourself, and then you could have the spell cast on you to become a human again. That would kind of require a new set of wizard abilities, transmutation abilities perhaps. They turn you into a toad, and they have the ability to turn you back into a hero. But doing so costs, I don't know, something. The last thing that I wanted to show off were these fate tokens, and they all have the same front and the same back, and really they just represent things that your hero can have that are either spent or unspent, and you can go ahead and say that they can have the fate token, and this is kind of their slot. Whenever they do something particularly well, like roll all skulls against a monster that rolls all not skulls, or perhaps you can give it to them when they have faced particularly brutal challenges. Perhaps if there's a total party KO in a dungeon, you give every single hero one of these, and now they have it permanently. You can have them trade it in, but that's kind of disregarding the fact that they're double-sided. So if you give all of them fate tokens, and they use a fate token, they'll flip it, and they can't do that thing anymore that they could do that had them flip their fate token. But they could absolutely get their fate token recharged by performing certain actions throughout the dungeon. So in Talisman, this allows you to re-roll movement dice or move around the board more easily. In HEROQuest, this could mean re-rolling one of your failed dice. So if you roll a die and it's to prevent yourself from getting attacked magically and you don't roll that 5 or 6, spend a fate token to re-roll it and try one more time. Don't turn the fate token in, let the hero keep the fate token so that they can recharge it by doing some sort of action later, and allow them the ability to collect more than one fate token through various actions that scale as the game progresses. So at some point, each of your 4 heroes will have various amounts of fate tokens that will allow them to do different things, and they might even start the quest with all of their fate basically charged up and ready to go if they did the appropriate action in between quests. Versus if they start the quest and they didn't go sleep at the inn, or they didn't eat that very delicious food, then all of their spent fate does not recharge, or only a portion of their spent fate recharges, rounded down, or there's really an unlimited amount almost of mechanics you could apply towards this scenario. But a fate token collection is a great way to grow the powers of your heroes without necessarily making them overpower or scaled beyond the current difficulty level of the quest, because it's just small advantages in combat, or perhaps when they are searching for traps. Other things that you can do with these fate tokens is you can spend more than one to accomplish certain things. So obviously this can't happen unless your hero gets more than one fate token, but if they do get more than one and they leave them unspent, you could have certain abilities that they could do if they spend 2 fate tokens, or 3 fate tokens, or 4 fate tokens, and you can absolutely have them unlock these abilities with the cost of gold before they enter a dungeon. And I'm not talking about combat abilities, I'm just talking about stuff that makes it easier to get through the dungeon. Rerolls is mainly the inspiration for my usage of the fate tokens here, but perhaps you could reroll multiple combat dice if you have multiple fate tokens in one encounter. And again, doesn't necessarily make them OP, because if they rolled all failures and they had 4 fate tokens and they spent all 4 and they re-rolled all 4 of their combat dice, they could roll all failures again and they have to accept that new result. But you could also use these to cancel a wandering monster when it appears, and I would make you spend maybe 2 or more fate tokens for that and just cancel it. And then you could also have where you spend 3 or 4 fate tokens in order to redraw a treasure card immediately after if it's a wandering monster or a hazard, or perhaps the wandering monster and hazard have different values of fate tokens you have to spend. At any rate, that's all the inspiration I wanted to give for now on fate tokens and HEROQuest. You could certainly acquire artifacts or have spells exist that will give the heroes more fate as they progress through a campaign or in between missions or even during missions. But will the tokens HEROQuest at the 24-minute mark of recording? Yes, they would. In my opinion, absolutely. Will the cards HEROQuest? Talisman has a very set amount of cards. We have rafts, we have helmets, water bottles, we have objects that have different functions that are pretty specific to Talisman, and you know how I feel about cards having specific instructions for the games in which they are included. But some of these are actually still compatible in their wording with the rules as written of HEROQuest. Helmet, for example. If you are defeated in battle and lose a life, roll 1 die. On a roll result of 6, the helmet protects you and you retain that life counter, though you still lose the battle. This could take some tooling in order to mean if you are attacked during a combat encounter and you do lose a BP, for all intents and purposes, you lose the encounter. So if there are other mechanics attached to that combat, you still have lost, and those still should apply, whatever they are. But you could definitely roll 1d6 as such, and if you get a 6, then you would be able to cancel that BP. It kind of goes against the idea of the helmet already being in HEROQuest that allows you to roll an extra defense dice, but you could go ahead and do that anyway. And then if the hero gets this helmet while they are searching through the dungeon, you can have them use one or the other, because they do have pretty different functions. One cancels a body point worth of damage, and the other one lets you roll a die in addition to what you already roll for defense. On paper, they kind of sound like the same thing, but there are nuanced situations where they're not. The water bottle object allows you to not lose a life in the desert, and that's pretty valid for Talisman. Doesn't make a lot of sense in HEROQuest, but you could definitely make rooms or dungeons in HeroQuest that take place in a desert temple dungeon. And these might have all of the heroes lose 1 body point at the very start of the quest due to the brutal heat of the biome in which the dungeon has been built. Sword, add 1 to your strength during battle. That's pretty easy. Psionic Might. Oh yeah, we're onto the spells. Before we get to the spells, I wanted to point out the talismans. The talismans are very special items in Talisman, obviously. You may only enter the Valley of Fire if you have one of the fabled talismans. Once gained, a talisman cannot be intentionally dropped. You could definitely hand these out as artifact cards at the end of a quest. Each hero gets 1 of them until all 4 heroes, or however many are playing, have 1, and then you could advance to the final encounter, the Valley of Fire, which would bring you to the next final encounter. As far as talisman spell cards go, we have Psionic Might, cast immediately before engaging in battle, add your starting craft value to your strength until the end of the battle. So this would be a very overpowered card for the wizard or for a new school of spells that the wizard or the elf could take on. You could add your mind points to the amount of attack dice you have. That would be wild, right? If you use this on the barbarian, for example, and he's already got an attack of 3 combat dice, we add his mind points, and now he's going to be an absolute monster until the end of a battle. You would have to interpret end of battle. To prevent this from being too powerful, I would say until he's done with the monster that he has killed. So upon the first monster the barbarian has slain, whatever that ends up being. We have Healing, cast at any time, heal any one character, including you, up to their starting life value. Love that, very powerful healing spell. Immobility, cast on a creature at any time or cast on another character on their turn before they move. If you cast it on a creature, you evade that creature until the end of the turn. If you cast it on a character, they roll 1 die. Their target is immobilized, their turn immediately ends, or the target resists the spell and nothing happens. Pretty much all of the spell cards are very good for use in HeroQuest. So with equipment and talismans and spell cards, I would say yes, those are very easy to work into a game of HeroQuest. Next up, we've got these though, and these are the cards that actually play on the board, and I don't think that these are going to be quite the same. We have the Imp, which is an event. You meet a mischievous imp, roll 1 die to determine where he teleports you, 1 through 6. You could still use this if you predetermine where on the board that 1 through 6 is. We've got the Bag of Gold, immediately gain 1 gold. That's nothing in the HeroQuest world, so you'd have to retool that. Then we have these enemies that appear in the form of cards with strength of 3. A ferocious bear runs amok in this area. It will remain here until it is defeated. Upon defeat, collect this card as a trophy. This would lend itself to a trophy system, and you could place these cards directly onto the rooms in which they are drawn. Perhaps you draw the card for every new room the characters explore, or perhaps you only do it for predefined rooms in the quest. Perhaps you build yourself an exploration event deck by shuffling these and only setting aside a small number of them, or you search the deck for cards that you know you will want in the current quest. Whatever you do, once they draw this, you don't necessarily have to have a miniature represent it. This is simply the creature that the hero is going to be forced to battle regardless of what the other miniatures in the room are doing every turn until he defeats it. It has a life of 2 and a strength of 3, so 3 attack dice. I don't know if I would want to say that this also applies to its defend dice. And perhaps you don't have to defeat the bear. You could just leave it in the room. And if you defeat all of the other characters and you run out of the room, then you don't have to defeat the bear. It's going to stay in this room, though, until it's defeated. It says so on the card. There are also places like the Pool of Life. When drawn, place 4 life counters on the card. Each character may bathe in the pool once per encounter and gain 1 life counter. When all life counters have been taken, discard this card. This is a very easy card to play in HeroQuest. You set this down and proceed, play as normal, and as the heroes wish to come back and get life from it, they can do so. It's really easy to do. I would say that for the most part, the cards will absolutely HeroQuest. Some of them are going to take some retooling, but an intelligent, a clever, crafty dungeon master or Zargon can absolutely retool them on the fly. As far as counters go, these would not be difficult to use to track various things in HeroQuest. I don't necessarily have any ideas for these other than we can definitely use these guys instead of constantly writing down your body points. So they would end up being quite useful, I think, and you can definitely use either the blue or green, your choice, for the keeping track of your mind points. You could also have a system in place where your hero uses stamina of some kind, and if they're going to do that, you can use these to track your stamina as well. I know that there are a lot of homebrew systems out there that add that third parameter on in order for them to be able to use special homebrew skills and the like. So yes, the counters would HeroQuest. Besides the counters, we have some Talisman D6, which are a different color than your movement dice, and you could use these for flavor. If you roll the Talisman symbol, this could be something simple, or you could just use it as the 6. Yes, some editions of Talisman do have the Talisman symbol as a 1. For the 5th edition, it is the 6. The coins are kind of a no-brainer. You can absolutely use the coins to represent some unit of currency for HeroQuest. Go ahead and take these and sprinkle them onto the board at random, and then when the heroes come into that room, they can collect that coin, or they can stop on a specific square to collect a coin. If they collect a coin, they can roll a Talisman die. This can be your gold die, and this times 10 can be what they ended up picking up. Or you can just have them collect these coins to represent tens of gold, round up or down as you see fit, so you don't have to keep track of ones. If we're retiring the penny in real life, we can retire the 1 unit of gold, right? And then they don't have to write all that down. They'll just have these gold pieces they can turn in at the end of the quest in order to write down their totals. Or they can use them to buy things and then write down their totals. So as far as that goes, that's the other portion and the dice portion. Both of those would HeroQuest. The last thing that we have to look at, and we looked at this out of order, admittedly, is the board. But before we get to the board, we're going to look at the next to last thing to look at, which are the character boards. And the character boards don't really offer you a whole lot of gameplay or content addition or homebrew potential as far as HeroQuest goes, unless you are going to convert all of the Talisman stats over to the HeroQuest game system and replace the battle system with the stats here on the card. So your strength, your craft, your life, your fate, and your gold, as well as your objects and followers, will determine what kind of character build you have when you start out as one of these characters, completely replacing the HeroQuest ones. But you will have your wizard, you will have your elf, you will have your warrior, basically, or knight. You will have your dwarf. And if you want to play the rogue, you can use the thief, or you can use the assassin. And there are a number of other players that you could replace using the stats here on these cards. So this would take a little bit more homebrewing, but it would definitely lend itself to the alignment system by default. I think that this isn't technically a yes for a Will It HeroQuest, but if you have the homebrew stuff in place for it, then it could be very useful, and those could definitely be yeses. The board is the only thing out of this whole box that keeps it from being a complete perfect 10 out of 10 experience, because you're not going to HeroQuest this board. It is possible maybe to use this as a campaign tracker, and between quests the heroes are able to roll dice and move amongst these squares unless you have a specific path you want them to follow, with Zargon's terrible Citadel of Evil being the crown of command. But in all of those cases, you are going to be ignoring the text that is on every single square, because it won't make sense anymore unless you're basically combining all of the mechanics of Talisman with HeroQuest and just playing this crazy mega game. And you don't want to do that, and I know that you don't want to do that because Talisman already takes 3,000 turns to play properly. I said a lot of words today in order to say that Talisman is probably one of the best things that you can get if you are trying to get stuff together to homebrew different systems for combat and exploration for your HeroQuest game. You can really put together some super creative stuff, and even if you aren't interested in anything else but the miniatures would definitely be worth getting on their own. I don't know if it would basically justify the price of buying the entire game, but that's a situation where you have to decide if it's worth it for you. So thank you, Avalon Hill, for creating Talisman, the magical quest game 5th edition, as an expansion to HeroQuest inadvertently. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I rate this, as far as Will It HeroQuest, the best thing about HeroQuest is more Talisman, out of 10. Thank you, brave heroes. I will see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your journey. Onward for now.